According to the United Nations Environment Programme, the building and construction sector account for a staggering 37% of global greenhouse gas emissions. To combat climate change, we urgently need to rethink our approach to building designs and construction. In today's episode, we'll explore how roadie architects are pioneering sustainable design strategies to significantly reduce the environmental impact of buildings. Stay with us as we uncover the future of sustainable architecture. Welcome to the Sustainability Nugget podcast. I am Rarasu Maraibi.
And I'm Tosin Folorunsho.
On this podcast, we'll learn about sustainability by discussing various related topics while focusing on three pillars: the economy, the society, and the environment. Welcome back to the pod, everyone. Today we have Kevin Deabler. He's co-founder of Road Architect. He's here today to enlighten us on how sustainable architecture can actually play a significant role in creating environment-conscious built environments. Hello, Kevin.
Hello there. Nice to meet you, Rarasu.
Nice to meet you too. So to start off, please, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Kevin Deabler. I'm one of the founders of Roadie Architects and a current principal of the firm. We are about 37 people based in Boston and have been doing our work for almost 2 decades.
Nice. So can you tell us about your journey as an architect and what actually led you to found this organization, Road Architect?
Yeah, I love telling that story because a lot of folks who hear about architecture, or when they hear that I'm an architect, they're like, I wanted to do that when I was a kid. And that was me. I did want to do it when I was a kid. A long journey of understanding what the profession meant. I, in some sense, wanted to find a career path. You know, at a young age, it was a little part of my family upbringing, and sort of you need to follow a calling in some manner. So I was just one of those who stuck to the plan and went through the process of just kind of continuing to follow my pursuits, my love of creativity, my sort of drive and passion to learn something, learn a profession, be a part of it. Was able to be licensed and move to a place where the community in Boston is very rich with respect to design and the built environment. Moving from North Carolina up to Boston was a life decision that I made almost like 30 years ago. And I came up with someone that I had met in undergrad at NC State with Eric Robinson, my co-founder of Roadie Architects, and we each ended up living on the same street in a neighborhood of the city called Dorchester. And at that point in our lives, we said, why don't we give this a try? This idea of starting a company, starting a business was a risk. Certainly at our age at that time, in our 30s, having a family, starting a family. And we convinced our wives that this was going to happen and this was going to be good for us someday. And it has, I think, risks turned into rewards. And that's something that I do encourage people to safely try to consider how you would do that in your own, careers and paths and journeys. Is a great decision because I had a great partner. I still do. And we have been able to grow something that we think is pretty special that is focused on communities and doing our work in places where the impact of our work is instant and recognizable, and all the challenges that go along with building things like structures and housing and hospitality, restaurants and hotels and industrial sites. All these things take a lot around where we live to get built, and there's a lot of conversations about them, and that I think has defined how we are and really has defined our path of growing the firm.
Okay, great. So it's not Road Architect, it's Roadie Architect?
Roadie.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
It's you're in the few now, but you're in the club of people who know how to pronounce the word, and we'll take it any way anyone says it, as long as it's not derogatory. But
Yeah.
yes, but thank you for correcting
Okay. So can you tell us, like, seeing like the roadie architect, like the website, I know it's not just like just general architecture. So like, can you tell us like the focus of roadie architect, like what type of designs do they do? Like, yeah, majorly like the goal.
Yes, sure. I think really any design firm has a focus, you could say. We didn't really want to set out on one particular building type, which
Mhm.
we call typologies. So with the kind of work that we do, as I mentioned, it was in the community. So
Mm,
we live in a dense part of the city of Boston, and right out of the gate, we focused on things that we saw not happening, which was good design, and well communicated designs to the community members. So we really focused on that first and foremost to try to do a better job. Our firm started in and around 2007, 8. There was a lot of buildup before then, but by the time Eric and I had left our respective last firms, there was a huge recession. So I think we had a little bit of an attitude of we'll do anything. We did bathrooms and stairways and things like that and for our neighbors just to test things out. But it then led to infill housing. Have a small lots that can fit some more units on it, and kind of started to plug into parts of our past that allowed us to get into other institutions like Harvard. We have been able to do projects for Google, for large corporations, for large development companies, but we have a very active mix of work right now, and it really breaks down into housing, hospitality, and then a little bit of everything else. And um, we would have said one day, a while ago, that we don't do single family, but we do it now, and
mm,
it's fun. It's a little bit more, focused on um, larger developments, and ones that have some challenges to them, and really kind of again focusing on sustainability in the single family market to more, I guess I'm trying to say, to the masses, if you will.
mhm.
I think that doing kind of high end luxury residences is fun and they're great and there's a place for that. But we're really focusing on housing needs for folks, but really making the housing as beautiful as it can be, but while achieving as many sustainability goals as possible.
So coming to sustainable architecture, can you please tell us what is meant? Like, how is sustainable architecture defined? Someone that doesn't, I've never heard that term. What does it mean?
It is constantly being defined right now, in our minds and through our experience. We think about energy use,
Mm,
and that has been a reversal in some manner, or it's been a not reversal, but like a growing aspect of sustainability. That there is a process for how you build to uh, create the most efficiency. It has a
mhm,
lot to do with details of buildings and sealing the air, creating thermal environments for the occupants that are comfortable, but that also use as little energy as possible.
mm,
The Taking a lot of cues from nature. Now we're sort of moving this away from only focusing on energy use to thinking about the carbon footprint of whatever we're doing.
mm,
That is then diving in a little bit more to the um, life, I guess, the supply chain of all the materials that we use, the carbon footprint of everything that we do, from
yeah.
our own activities to the materials and products that we select, the construction methods,
Mm,
all of that can be thought through critically to reduce its carbon imprint. And I think there was a time, it probably like maybe 10, 15 years ago, where you know sustainability was something that you could see. We call it like eco bling, and if it has like solar panels on there, or some different color, or like lots of louvers, you would be like, oh, that's a sustainable building. it's just like kind of like hangs off the building, and it is meant to sort of like display. But I think that we're trying to make it much more inherent in the product and in the way that we design. And the output is really about creating the most beautiful solution to anything, any problem that we see, and any client's needs that we have.
So how does road architect actually approach like this sustainable design innovation?
I think that we are now looking at the needs of the occupants as much as possible. That first and foremost, you have to achieve that goal. You have to do what the client asks you to do.
Okay.
And our clients are kind of ranging in their kind of like structures. We do affordable housing as one of our types of housing that we build, and that is an industry and I guess you could say a market that cares a lot about occupants' health and safety and well-being. So we've found really good partners with affordable housing developers that care greatly about the sustainability. But I think that we also are very serious about like understanding the science of buildings and running energy models, working with experts to understand energy use, and everything can now be built in a model before you start construction. And we're at the point where we have such data, we have such a capacity to crunch large amounts of data. It is like a no-brainer that you should be building an energy model when you build something new, and or at least consulting the best practices of building science. And that's what we've learned through the passive house. But process, but all along the way, we're still trying to, kind of place the joy of building and the joy of occupying a new building at the forefront, and really think about the concepts that hold projects together. Really consider, well-being and consciousness, and in and along the way, and think about things like that. So. It's a lot to bite off, but I think after having some of the experience that we've had, the science is becoming a little bit more regular for us. Like we know who to go to and how to, make our way through that sort of difficult process and easily. But now we can be a little bit more aggressive on doing the better work that the whole site needs. And
so you mentioned the passive house. I guess that's one of like the structures you guys build. So can you explain what's this passive house about? Like,
sure.
Yeah.
And I've learned that we have become experts in a sense, because we did the first certified passive house single families in the city of Boston completed last year. We've been talking to a lot of folks about what that is. It really is. It's a way to ensure with a third-party institute, the Passive House Institute. There's an international body as well as a U.S.-based body that collects the testing reports and walks through the process with you, collecting the information at different times that really verifies the science behind your energy model and behind your design. So you agree to check in at different stages, and some of those stages are during construction. So it really is about testing your building to make sure that it's actually air sealed before you complete the project. And that's just not something that's done generally in the U.S. construction industry. So if you hear passive house related to a project and it's certified, then those are building owners that are committing to build with this sustainable method. And it's again believing in science, believing in data, and using that as a tool in your design process.
Yeah. So with buildings generally, right? It's known that I think globally, the building sector contributes like 1/3 of the greenhouse gas emission. Like when you're comparing to like transportation, and like you mentioned initially, like most of it is energy, but also like the materials, the supply chain. So how have you and your team being able to, like, are you guys tracking with your designs? How much are you guys able to reduce in terms of percentage of like this impact as a whole?
Yes, and actually, I think the number is closer to 42%
Mm.
of the of carbon, production and use, carbon consumption. I think if you know that there's other sectors like transportation or food or industrial productions that we all need to do our part. And as a building industry, the architects and designers have known about this for some time, and the best way to do it is going forward build as efficiently as possible. And I do believe that building codes are catching up to this issue.
Mhm.
So things that are new and brought online are much better than where we were building 25, 30 years ago. But we have all sorts of existing buildings right now. So
Mhm.
getting into retrofits is going to be a huge part of the puzzle of reducing the problem and addressing the issues of global carbon production in the future. I think that we do place a lot of understanding. We do know that the building industry and all that goes on, construction and building materials that you use, all are contributing to the issues and to the problems. But there are a lot of really important and smart people thinking through economics of circular economies and trying to instill and incite more entrepreneurial investment in green technologies, and again sort of be part of this sort of circular environment where more and more products are available to the world, and it's not just something that's like an expensive premium to put on. So I'm not sure if I answered the question on that one or not.
So, but one thing I want to really know about, I know like from what you've said, you're really designing like the house like to be more efficient with energy. I'm hearing insulation to make sure there's no leakage and just improving like the energy consumption thereby. If we're improving the efficiency, that means we're reducing the greenhouse gas impact. But I really want to come to the envelope itself, like the material, like looking at like concrete, steel, wood. Like, are you in your designs, are you guys using more environmentally conscious materials? For example, are you replacing concrete with something with lower carbon impact? How does that go?
I think yes. I think the question are we what are the like strategies and materials that we're using
Yeah.
to help minimize the environmental impact. So I think that again in that sort of notion of many people have been trying to at this issue for a while, and I'm lucky to be in Boston near schools like Harvard and MIT and research institutions that new ideas are coming up left and right. There are a few things. Concrete is one of the most carbon intensive materials that you can use. Unfortunately, it's also one of the most structurally efficient materials, and we just can't do the kinds of building that we need right now without concrete. But can you be designing things where you kind of can create efficient shapes out of concrete? Can you source zero emission cement? The answer is yes. All those things are possible. There is also this idea that all you get to choose from is concrete or steel to build tall buildings or buildings of large volume and size. But now CLT, cross laminated timber, mass timber, all of these more ecologically friendly materials are coming into the market and starting to actually be demanded by the market. And that is a part of the solution is to really kind of like get the economists and the financial sectors to encourage this, to ease the funding of startups that are providing these products. And I can only say that architects really want this, because we are the ones who have to sit and all are always blamed for the budget busts. Like, oh, your design did this, but we can only design with the materials that are available in the market. If we're adding the goal of needing to use new materials, new things, we're talking about an industry that's very risk averse. We need, insurance companies and other things to understand that this is a goal that's important in the world, to sort of like, maybe cut us a little slack on this and allow for some innovation in this industry, because it is a critical need to address.
So when you talk about shapes, like
Mhm.
designing the shapes sustainably, I really want to understand. Are you talking about like designing it in a way where you're using like less space but for more things? How does the shape come into like the sustainability part of the design? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it kind of goes back to like, that sort of like kid inside me, and like
Mm-hmm.
anyone who has a creative, whim about them, like you learn about proportion, you learn how to draw, you realize that you can do things like build models. I think that we are looking out to make a world that's like joyful to occupy, that when you walk down the street you want to look up and see maybe some shapes that are a little unexpected, but they bring some kind of new way of looking at something. And right here on my shoulder, if you can see that, that's like a close up. We're really like proud of that fact that little corner bent at like 7 degrees, like it's just like that. And
Yeah.
I can tell you that's a gigantic building. It's like 7 stories tall, and it sits on top of one of the highest points in Boston. But
Mm.
we really cared about that detail, that little joint. And that's maybe not such a specific sustainability topic, but
Mm-hmm.
the need for architects to think about form and think about people who have to walk by something every day. I think it places an emphasis on the tools that we use, drawing and modeling and shaping, and computers to show the images before you actually start to build it. So I get pretty excited talking about shapes, and we have a lot of people on our team here that feel the same way, that we just kind of like get a little rowdy here at the studio, like kind of like inventing new shapes, new
Mm-hmm.
solutions, being inspired and all that. So we really want to make sure that our inspiration, comes out, and that the communities that are around these buildings that we design, or spaces that we design, are also excited by it. And that's what's probably the most fun part about being an architect.
Yeah. So that actually just leads me to how like architecture can actually help communities, like help create like a more equitable world. So how do like the road architects actually engage with their local communities and like stakeholders to ensure that the design actually supports the community value?
Yeah, well, I think that maybe I spend some time complaining about this fact that building in Boston is like can be kind of arduous. There's a lot of meetings. Some of our
Mm.
projects, like that one with that cool joint in it,
Mm-hmm.
we probably had to go to about 75 community meetings and
Oh wow.
meetings with city officials and different agencies in the city. It sort of has evolved here in Massachusetts in a way of making sure that there's transparency with what's going on. It makes it kind of hard. There's a lot of time. So I think that we really focus on differently. I think that comes into the soft part of our profession, which is the process, and needing to spend time having meetings. To be honest, they don't actually like translate right into making the building. So that's the hard part of the process, the tangible building that you're creating. But the soft part is a lot of talking, a lot of sharing, a lot of questions about how policies are being implemented on
Mm.
projects. And again, I'm speaking to you from the city of Boston, and there's a goal to be net zero by 2050 here, which is a really kind of a tall task, but it's started, and we're on the way to doing that. We know that it's a worthy goal, and it creates a more healthy community, and especially if people know what's coming up on their corner, and it's not a surprise to them. And there's a lot of parts of the country, a lot of parts of the world, especially, where that knowledge just doesn't get shared that way. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that we need democracy to survive somehow, and keep at this process of consensus building as hard as it is.
Yeah. So I know you've been pointing at the project behind you. I know you're really excited about it, but can you share, are there more like very exciting projects that you guys are working on or worked on that you like to share with us, and really what makes the project stand out?
Yeah, I think that we always have a few really exciting housing projects, and we just finished one that I talked about, the Passive House, single families in West Roxbury, but we're also doing a 105 unit affordable housing project for a client called Justice Start in Cambridge, and that's talking about a community that has an affordable housing overlay that had really kind of sped that path through the community process to allow for that to be built. But I think one that's going to have a little bit of a sunrise for us, and it's going to start construction fairly soon, is Dorchester Fieldhouse. This is, going to be in a community of great need. It is, I'm told, one of the United States' most diverse zip codes. So the evolution of this has taken many years to occur. It'll probably be 10 to 12 years of time frame to get it built. But it is in essence, a building for recreation, but it has wraparound services. So it has a field where people can play sports indoors, grass, a turf field, which is unusual in the city of Boston. It has basketball courts, a walking track, fitness rooms, but it also has a teaching kitchen, counseling rooms, and things that will benefit everyone of all ages and abilities. It really will be a kind of like a unique building focused on inclusion and the needs of those with disabilities of many different varieties. So we have been working with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Dorchester, as well as the Martin Richard Foundation. It's something that has sort of sprouted out of one of the worst tragedies in Boston's histories, which is the marathon bombings. And we have worked alongside Bill Richard and his foundation and his family to turn that into something of a force for good. We are trying to achieve some very aggressive energy goals on that, but it is a commercial building, one that we want to have packed with people. So when you have a building that's packed with people, it's hard to also reduce its energy consumption. But we are setting some pretty high goals on that sense. And I think that's been a pretty exciting project to be a part of and to help make happen. And can't wait for that to really hit the ground.
Nice. So can you tell us some of the challenges that's faced when trying to incorporate the sustainable designs into projects, and how you and your team at Ready has actually worked to overcome them?
I think that we always have to understand that the budget pressure is paramount. Everything is being built. There is a finite amount of money that is available to build something, and the sustainability has probably, hopefully this is not happening as much anymore, that this concept of it's a premium to go to this high level of sustainability. I think that's going to start fading away as a notion that if the builders, the suppliers, the clients themselves are committed to this goal, it should be part of the things that you work at to solve, to make happen through the life of a project. We always like to be collaborative with the builders that we work with. And if they're along with the same mindset of addressing climate change, then we should be able to come up with new systems of building. But I would say that's probably one of the biggest challenges, is just at this stage, the industry is not building the most efficient way possible. So I think that we're in a state of change. Hopefully that, again, some of the costs of materials, some of the costs of the services that need to be provided will start to flatten a little bit. And we understand what it takes to really build sustainably. It should, become a little bit more cost effective to build this way. I think it's just making sure that we align ourselves with our clients' goals, and that we're not kind of pushing against them.
So looking ahead, where do you see sustainable architecture evolving into?
I think that it's really, evolving into being a part of a cycle of change. I think it's no secret to say that there's systems in the world that are extremely unfair. The climate change affects the world's poorest populations the most. And, the earth and nature is one of the most providing kind of entities that we have to work with, and it always sort of restores itself. And it as humans, it's restorative. We need to make sure that we can kind of like realign this system so that it encourages this restoration. So I think that the way to do it, I think, is just to work as teams. It's always about teams and collaboration. And if we're the only ones fighting for these ideals, we're going to get tired out, and we're going to retire before we need to actually finish the work. And there's so much to do here, and so much to build on. Just again, need to find the people that are smarter than us, learn from them, share our lessons, and really diversify our own perspectives of the matters. And these aren't issues that are going to be fixed overnight. They've been happening for centuries, and the things not surprisingly that are really bad or the economic system that we have. And again, that's another podcast. I'll stick to what I can do, which is learning to collaborate with like-minded experts, and try to share our lessons in this journey.
Thank you. So do you have any advice for like young architects or even old architects that actually want to start focusing on sustainable design?
Sure. Yeah, I think that I feel like there's many different aspects of the profession and of the career that can sustain and create a better cycle of sustainability and resiliency. I always kind of just go back to the joy of it. You got to love what you do. I could point back to that joint, and we really get nerdy about the angles and things like that. But that's sometimes it's enough to get you up in the morning and to have a good time doing what you're doing. I think that the profession itself is pretty serious about making these changes. And I know that the academic world is very focused on this, but the profession itself is more of like, it's in a state of change. So, but I think it's really about, tapping into your own sense of joy and why you do this hard work.
Yeah. So, thank you. So we've come to the end of this episode. I want to thank you, Kevin, for actually taking out the time to discuss sustainable architecture and what the Rodi Architects is doing in this space. And to the audience,
thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
And so to the audience, if you're still watching, thank you for watching to this point. If you want to learn more about Rodi Architects, or you want to connect to Kevin, I'll put all of the details down in the description box so you could reach out. And if you're not yet subscribed, please do subscribe. You can follow us here on YouTube or on any audio platform that you listen to your podcast. Until next time, continue to live consciously, and I'll see you in my next episode. Thanks so much for listening to the Sustainability Nuggets podcast. I am Rarsu Maribi.
And I am Tosin Folorunsho. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave a rating and review on wherever you listen to your podcast.
You can also show your support by signing up for a small donation to help sustain future episodes. You can find all relevant links in the description. See you in our next episode.